Hello. On the fourth round, Finland faced Kosovo, and the first board was Mikael Agopov versus Nderim Saraci, or something like that. 2,400 players, just like Mikael. And today I'm in a hurry, so I really have to speed up through the moves. I didn't even get a lot of time to analyze, so I might miss some stuff. But yeah, the opening was modern Steinich, pretty rare. I think Sampsa plays it himself as black. And yeah, I think it's a way to play for a win maybe, but I really don't know anything about it. Uh, yeah, I'm completely, usually it seems like the top move here is f6, some really weird stuff. And h4 was actually, it was actually maybe a mistake. Um, Maybe because it leaves g4 square for black to use. So again, just using an engine, h6. Black is fine with the trade because his bishop on e7 is pretty passive. Let's say bishop e3, the knight f6. And now e4 is hanging and knight g4 is coming, and that's kind of annoying. And white cannot push the knight away with h3 because he has played h4. So here maybe the right move was here. And after knight f6, bishop c2, knight g4, white can just go back to c1 and then play h3 to kick the knight away. But h4 is very natural. I mean, obviously white is hoping that black takes and then his rook is just ruling the h world. Anyway, knight f6 happened. We need 2. d5, okay, get some space, but it's not always so clear how to continue. And the knight has to go back. Yeah, maybe it takes, maybe it wasn't greatest, obviously it's so bad. Like if you look at the knight on b8, you don't really want to help to develop it. So something like bishop c2 is maybe more logical, but it seems like after c6, white would have to trade and then the knight can get out anyway. So it's like no matter what, the knight wasn't stuck on b8 forever. Anyway, let's move on. White is a bit more comfortable, except here. This knight g4 move is actually quite annoying to face. And h4 is under pressure, and white could have avoided this tactic. Oh, I mean this knight g4 annoyance with knight d2, and yeah, now it's just impossible. And here already I think f5 was maybe possible for black. And once again here, f5 was possible for black to get some activity on the king side, and white could have stopped that plan with the h5, because if g5, it's very difficult to play f5 anymore. If black takes, white can play like g3, put the knight on f5, and if f5, white can take on g6, and maybe black can sacrifice a pawn, but it's not so obvious that black will be able to checkmate white. Anyway, the game starts this shuffling phase. Both sides once again have trouble finding a clear plan, and the rooks get traded, and once again a lot of shuffling. Here maybe white is slightly better because he has the passed pawn. and c5 and e5 are maybe a little bit weak. So some hope for white. And here maybe the best one was, I mean, the Agopov's plan makes sense. Put pressure on the both pawns. But maybe knight d4 was more accurate. Black cannot take because the queen is hanging, and maybe white can put the knight on c6 and block the queen from defending. And maybe this gives more options, not sure. a4 might be a plan. And yeah, once again, a lot of shuffling. White is just more comfortable trying to get a way through, but it's just not so easy, you know, not easy. Queen a1, maybe not the best. Black manages to play c4, and now his game frees up quite a bit. You can see that obviously this combination is not the greatest. And both knights are hanging. So if black takes on c3, white takes on d7 with check, and probably white has chances to promote the pawn. So white won a pawn, but you can see that the white king is in big danger. It's gonna be checkmated very soon. So white has to deal with the second rank. Knight e2 blocks that rank. Some checks. White manages to go to an endgame, but unfortunately black has calculated further and wins the pawn back. And white also wins the pawn back, but there's just not enough pawns left for white to win. And yeah, this is just not enough. Black is ready to take on d6 at any moment. And king g5, for whatever reason, was played just for fun, I guess. So yeah, that was maybe not the most exciting game, but there were some strategic concepts there. So here, Sampsa Nyysti versus Endrit Uruci, 2300 player, just like Sampsa. And Trombovsky, 94. I myself play d5, and I think this is the best. 94 starts some kind of shenanigans, which is exactly what the Trombovsky player wants to see. A lot of weird moves. Queen f5, so kind of funky move. The point is that the knight can never go to c3 anymore. Yeah, knight d2 is one way, d5 is another one, and the bishop can even go back to c1. So it plays a little dance, but white will get the big center. Anyway, knight d2 was played, and interestingly, white allows this check, and computer is also fine with it. It seems like the king is safe enough on f2, and all black's pieces are on the back rank and not so active. So, and also the bishop on b4, you know, it's actually not doing anything on b4. It just took a check and that's it. There's no follow-up really. g4, another plan was h4, h5, h6. And e5, black obviously wants to open up the position so he can checkmate the king. Maybe knight d3 wasn't the best. If you look at the knight on e5, it's actually really strong, and it feels like black can at any moment he can take on d3. And if that's the case, that usually means you shouldn't take the piece immediately. Just wait for the right moment. So maybe this was a bit hasty. And after queen b6, white could have played queen b5. This was slightly annoying. Offering, threatening to take on b6, so black would have double pawns. And if black takes, the knight is maybe somewhat active. And also, in the end game, white doesn't have to worry about his king safety. Knight b5 was played. But black just develops his last minor piece, and this is quite typical. Like sometimes this knight b5 just looks very threatening. Bishop c7 is coming. Knight c7. Suddenly black just develops, and there's nothing big. If knight c7, black just defends the pawn, and the knight isn't doing much on c7. So white tries bishop c7, and the queen looks awkward, but there's no next move. And here, the decisive moment. White thinks he can win a pawn, but Sampsa uncorks a really nice sequence of moves to get the initiative and to get to the white king. And white has moved his pieces a lot, the same piece a lot in the early middle game. And that's against the basic chess principles. Like he should develop, get all his pieces into the game before you start moving all your pieces so many times. And Sampsa wonderfully punishes white for his arrogance and sacrifices an exchange. The knight is hanging, b2 is hanging. The knight doesn't have too many squares, and rook d8, very nice. Knight a5. Maybe this wasn't. Seems like this was a slight inaccuracy because after the knight moves, the rook on c1 gets more powerful, and it can go to c8 after the black rook moves, and black king doesn't have any escape, so that's a slight problem. Seemed like the best was something like just play bishop f6, and yeah, the position is quite complicated. Maybe rook b2 is coming, I'm not sure. Very complicated position, but yeah, knight a5 is a way to try to win the game immediately. Queen e3, and white of course checks on c8, bishop d8, and here it's white just spends 3 minutes and plays queen e4, which is really weird, and it's honestly so stupid. In such a complicated position, you just play queen e4, and basically you're just hoping for the best, and it's just not how you should do things. There was a way for white to survive, and that was the most natural. Force the black rook away from the active position, take the knight, threaten the rook. And for example, one line I was looking at, this was actually during a stream, rook d2, still looks scary, and seems queen c3 is pretty good. Check, king f4, g5, this was my suggestion, and it is a good suggestion, but the king just goes back, and the king is actually quite safe there, and the black king is also under attack, and black can avoid the perpetual with f6, but white can, for example, play like this, stop queen d2, and there's nothing black can do. It's just a draw. And this line actually is not so complicated. Not complicated at all. Like, for example, Janne Tuononen himself mentioned rook d8 and queen c3. So yeah, queen e4, this just happened because he thought for 3 minutes. Obviously, you should spend more. I mean, he had 30 minutes. He should at least spend like, I don't know, 10 minutes here. This is like a critical position. You just cannot play fast. It's just stupid. And yeah, g5, this was a problem in many positions. Like sometimes there were lines like black playing g5. Not here, like at some point, like g5, and there would be some kind of checkmate. And queen b6, very nice. Queen f6 is coming, or queen g6. The knight is hanging, and the game is just over. The black, I mean, the white king is on f5, so what can you expect? It's just lost. Knight d6 was tried for whatever reason. I mean, there's no help really. Maybe white was hoping for this kind of endgame. Black took with the rook. Check. f6. Maybe not the best. I think it was like mate in 8 or something after bishop f6. But f6 was played. Queen c5. And yeah, I mean, if white takes, for example, there's knight d4. And yeah, what can white do? White's getting checkmated. The queens got traded, but black is still completely winning. The white king is in too much danger, and for example, a knight e7 is a one threat, winning the rook. Rook e8 was tried. King f7, rook h8, and a little sequence of moves, and the game is over. King f5 is checkmate, and king e3. The rook is lost. So very nice game from Sampsa. Very nice game. And here Erik Ronka versus Afrim Fejzullahu, 2200 player. Okay, typical stuff. This is anti-martial because black is getting really good results with the martial, with the gambit. So white tries to, I mean, this is one way white can avoid the gambit. And he just develops. And white doesn't want to exchange the queen, so he plays queen e2. Now maybe knight d4 is coming, so white stops that. And this game had a lot of mistakes. I cannot really, I'm in a hurry, so I cannot cover them all. Just way too many, way too many small mistakes. And yeah, just some kind of maneuvering. These kind of positions can be difficult to understand. Bishop f5 was maybe not the greatest. If you look at the bishop on b1, it's a little bit blunted because the pawn is on e4. After black takes, the bishop is a little bit stronger. It can go to e4, and then it has even hope for maybe going all the way to h7. So this helped white a little bit. Queen c6, g5, natural, trying to go for some attack, but this was actually a bit too early. Knight f1 was the correct move. Maybe going for e4, bishop e4, and now g5. Because after g5, black found a nice way to defend, and he releases some pressure with exchanges. And knight c4 once again. Just the knight is annoying on c4. More pieces will get traded. So black, the attack is just not easy to maintain anymore. Knight d6, and yeah, this was maybe a surprise. Knight d6. And queen g4, another surprising mistake. I should have played f3, because after queen g4, black is actually better. You can see that the knights are coming, the knights are dancing around the board. And here black could already play knight d3 and we get rid of the bishop pair. And you know, he has a passed pawn. But rook e8 was played, maybe slightly passive. And yeah, never play f6. Once again, f6 fails. Once again, knight e3 was a move. f6 opens up the way for the black king. So suddenly, like the more the position opens, the more beautiful the knights are. The bishops are. And the bishop is just beautifully placed on d4, putting pressure on the knight and f6. And yeah, a lot of mistakes, like maybe here g1 was better. Knight f5 was actually not the best, even though it looks like, okay, it's trying to get rid of the bishop, but it actually runs into some problems that I didn't have time to really analyze. And here was a nice move. Rook f4 looks logical, defense and attacks. There's another typical move, rook e3. This is quite nice. If black takes, the pawn structure white has is a bit better. Black cannot take on d4 because the rook is hanging. And the bishop f3 is coming, rook c1 is coming, and rook is also trailing b3. So this is quite a nice move. Anyway, this happened, some exchanges. So white won 2 pawns and black only won 1 pawn. But black is also quite active here. And 91, maybe not the best. You can see black just wasted 2 tempos, or at least 1 tempo, to do nothing at all. And white obviously tries to promote his pawn. h5, it's just a desperate way to stop white from promoting the pawn, trying to distract the rook. But the cost is 1 pawn. And if rook a8, white could play a bishop d1. And rook c5 is coming, so the knight cannot move, and you know, white is up 2 pawns. So what? Black tried c4 and knight b4. Okay, knight b4 not the greatest. White just takes the pawn, takes another pawn, and I mean there's nothing. a7, bishop d5 is coming, and promotion. That's it. Yeah, I think a lot of mistakes in this game, but in the end, Erik was superior. So good job. Okay, the last game, Tero Kokkila versus Korab Saraci. Once again, Tero had problems in the opening. This is called a Lapin variation. Knight f6, one way to play. And d6, bishop c4, knight b6. I myself play e6 and just develop. Knight b6 is another way. And bishop d7 looks natural, blocking the pin, but maybe not the best, or at least not the most popular. Usually black just takes. So black helps white develop, but the idea is that white cannot take with the d pawn because the queens get traded. The king is not so great on d1. So white is forced to take with the knight on e5, and then white has an isolated pawn, and after bishop d7, a lot of minor pieces can get traded, and black is quite close to drawing, and that's of course fine with the when you have the black pieces. So bishop d7 was played first, and now the difference is white can actually take back with the pawn, and yeah, now he doesn't have the isolated pawn, and the pawn on e5 is actually quite annoying. a6, bishop e6. Well, black sees, okay, I have some trouble. Like I want to exchange the queens, go to an endgame. Maybe now I can hold the game. g6 was actually a surprising little inaccuracy. Black obviously wants to develop his pieces, but knight g5 was quite annoying. So here maybe black had to wait a moment and play h6 to stop this knight g5 idea. But black allowed this knight c5, and now it's quite annoying. The bishop doesn't have too many squares. Black just took a pawn, and even though black won a pawn, the problem is that most likely white will be able to win e6. And when he wins e6, then e7 is weak, and also b7 is weak. And white has the bishop pair, so white is just more comfortable all around. And here already black saw nothing better than to go to d5 with the knight. It just doesn't have too many active squares. So he gave up the pawn back, but now, yeah, white just has the bishop pair, so he's just more comfortable, and black has some weak pawns. And yeah, this position is just so tough to defend. Like, because white can make 50 moves, 100 moves, and always just torture black, and the torture never ends, and it's just very, very annoying. So it's just, yeah, it's just difficult to defend, like to find the best moves. Already here it's like h5. After h5 it's just like a game over. Black should have reacted some other way. But yeah, it's just, like I said, it's just so difficult to defend no matter what. e5 was tried. It's very desperate way, and white found the absolute best way, f5. He didn't even take a pawn, he just played f5, which is really nice. And the idea is that if black takes, white just takes back. Rook d8, there's bishop g5. And if rook c7, still check. And white wins a piece. So f5 was a really nice move. Really the final touch. Knight d4 was tried, but I mean the game is just over, really. The rook is coming, nothing can be done. And Tero resigned. For example, if black defends, white can just take. It's gonna be checkmate. So Finland won 2.5. So yeah, very nice. But as expected, I think 2.5 was the. Looking at the ratings, it was expected result, I think. Even though the difference wasn't really that big, but I think enough to get 2.5. So yeah, good job, Finland. And yeah, see you later. Bye bye.